Hey there, welcome to another Two-Wheeled Wednesdays. You know, after all the wind and rain that we've had lately, today it almost looks like a summer day. Yeah, almost. I'm a little bundled up for a summer day. In summer, the choice whether to ride outdoors, like today, or indoors on the trainer is a no-brainer. A no-brainer trainer. That could be a title for something. Anyway, when the days are shorter and colder and wetter, like we have here in November, sometimes riding indoors is obviously a better choice. Other days, like today, maybe not. Each day has its pluses and minuses. Like surfers say, every wave is different. This week's Two-Wheeled Wednesdays, we look at those advantages and disadvantages and drawbacks and pluses and minuses. And then you can decide for yourself the answer to the age-old question, in or out. So, while we do have a sunny day, let's go for a ride and talk about why you might make the choice to ride outdoors. Or maybe not. So bundle up and let's go. Yeah, probably the most obvious advantage to riding outside is the fresh air and sunshine. Fill your lungs with fresh, clean, unfiltered air. Let the sun produce vitamin D. Even though you don't have much skin exposed. And just relish the sunny day. If you only get one a week, get out and enjoy it. Yeah, riding in shorts and a short sleeve jersey on a summer day is awfully nice. Bundling up for a winter ride just isn't the same. Nice climb. Not only does it take you longer to get ready for a ride, it takes an extra 10 or 15 minutes sometimes to get all these layers on. But it seems like you're constantly zipping up and unzipping and rearranging layers so you get warm and stay warm, but not too warm. Whereas inside, it's a controlled environment. Oh, I just felt some sprinkles. The forecast was for 40% chance of rain, which you can also take as a 60% chance of not rain. But another reason to ride outside is if you're training for an upcoming race or some sort of event, chances are that the race won't be canceled because of the rain. You're gonna ride in the event in the rain. So you have to ask, are your competitors out training in the rain and getting used to it? Or are they riding inside? If they're riding in the rain and you ride in the rain, you're at least staying even with them. If they're out riding in the rain and you're in a nice warm back bedroom somewhere, they're getting ahead of you. Ooh, I just felt some more rain. Oh well, it's November. Another nice thing about riding this time of year is I live in a tourist area. Tourism is a big industry here. And this time of year, there's not a lot of tourists. There's not a lot of RVs or guys pulling boats, and so you have long stretches of good road all to yourself with some pretty nice views. And if you only get one day of sunshine a week, that means you get 6 days of rain, and that's 6 days of everything getting all clean and sparkly. So it's really pretty. It's really gorgeous. The rainy season also gets streams and waterfalls flowing again, which is nice. Research has shown that just the sound of moving water is good for your mental health. Plus all the positive ions flowing from streams and rapids and waterfalls like this are good for you too. Another thing to consider about riding outside, this time of year with the sun so low, it can be tough for drivers to see. Drivers have reduced visibility looking into the sun, just because of the angle of the sun. And then if it's, raining or even a little drizzly and they have to use their wipers, then that compounds the problem. Bright clothes such as this, flashing lights like headlight and a couple tail lights are a must. So that's something else to consider when you're trying to decide in or out. Okay, and probably the last thing to consider for riding outside, well, the last thing on my list for today, is roads this time of year can be kind of wet, kind of muddy, kind of gritty, and which will get into your gears and brakes. You definitely need to spend more time this time of year on bike maintenance, a chore that, unless you have a nice heated garage, is even more annoying when it's getting colder and darker earlier. Okay, well that's it for the outside portion of In and Out. And I think that's it for today's ride. I think I'm going to get myself a hot shower and a nice bowl of soup. And tomorrow, get on the trainer indoors. It's supposed to rain. so here we are in the pain cave, as people say it. I've got mine pretty well decked out. I mean, I got a refrigerator right here. But first, let's look at some of the cons of riding indoors. Probably the biggest drawback is that indoor cycling can be boring, incredibly boring. But I must admit that it's gotten better with the development of indoor cycling apps like Zwift, Rouvy, I'm using Rouvy right here, and others like it, where actually an avatar of you is riding in a virtual world. Zwift is 100% virtual. There is nothing real about it. Rouvy, on the other hand, puts you into actual areas, actual parts of the world. Right now I'm riding up the road to Crater Lake, which is pretty cool. Not too far from here. And it makes more of a game, a video game. So it's not quite as boring as it used to be. There are many videos out there which describe the different cycling apps and the different platforms better than I ever could. So I'm not going to go into that on this video, if ever. Personally, I use both Rouvy and Zwift, depending on the mood, Like today I'm just doing a scenic ride, so I'm on Rouvy. Tomorrow is a training ride with intervals, so I'll use Zwift where I can be racing against other people. It just depends what kind of mood I'm in. Another thing to consider about riding indoors is it can get pretty uncomfortable after a couple hours of staying in pretty much the same position. And, like out on the road, you can coast and stand up and get off your bike. It seems like you're here and you're riding. And it can get pretty warm inside. A fan is a must. I use 2 fans. The more the better, as far as I'm concerned. And the fans are nice and they really help, but it's not the same as a real breeze blowing through your hair, assuming you have hair. So being indoors, you're indoors. You have no experience, no actual real world experience with hills, even though a smart trainer will, help compensate for the hills if you got it hooked up to the right program. But there's no traffic. You don't have any cornering to deal with, breaking into corners. And you don't have to outrun any dogs. So it really doesn't help your real world, actual bike handling skills. And for some people, it's a lot of numbers instead of just riding your bike. If you look at, in this case, Rouvy, and you look at all the numbers on the screen, it's can be kind of overwhelming. You look at all the numbers on your computer, and that can be kind of overwhelming. So for some people, that's a turnoff or a disadvantage to riding indoors as opposed to just, being out on the road pedaling. But for me, it's another thing to keep me involved and somewhat entertained. But there are a lot of advantages to riding indoors too. The obvious advantage is that riding indoors is not weather dependent. You have control over the climate. You don't have to get bundled up against the cold or get into layers of rain gear to stay dry and warm. It's always shorts weather on the trainer, you know? You don't even need sleeves. And the only headwinds are the ones you create with fans. And they can be kind of welcome sometimes. Most people ride indoors for fitness training. You know, you're not riding indoors to get somewhere, like on a bike. And one of the keys to improving your fitness is riding with consistency. Riding indoors, you don't have to deal with hills to climb and hills to descend. Although, like I said before, a smart trainer can simulate those. You don't have traffic, stoplights, other cars that you have to wait for. You don't have to wait with those dogs chasing you to deal with or to interrupt your consistency. It's much easier to maintain your heart rate or your, goal power levels indoors. So that's, for training, indoors is more precise, let's put it that way. And, unlike riding outside, if you get hurt, you pull a muscle or something, or you just get too tired to continue, you can just stop and get off. Outdoors, you either have to call someone for a ride home, or you have to, you still have miles to cover before you get back home. And if you're totally bonked, if you've expended all your energy, you've burned all the matches in your matchbox, whatever you want to call it, you could be in for a couple miles of agony before you finally get home. And, that brings us to another benefit of indoors, is even though it can be gorgeous outdoors, as opposed to being stuck in your spare bedroom, or your garage, or wherever you have your trainer set up, you have to admit that it is much safer on the trainer. Car-bike accidents are on the rise worldwide. Maybe because there's more people on bikes. I don't know. So it's definitely safer indoors. And then there's those darn dogs. What is it about dogs and bikes? Crazy. And at the end of your ride, you don't have to wash the mud and road grime from your bike. If you had a sweaty session, you might want to wipe down your bike, but for the most part, the maintenance is about 90% less. And like I, said earlier in the video, washing a bike outdoors in weather like this can be a little annoying. Let's put it that way. All right, well, that's definitely a very broad brush overview. I mean, I'm sure there's many points that I missed, and everybody has their own opinion. There are endless small details and considerations to be made that will undoubtedly affect your choice to ride in or out. Which is better, inside or outside? Well, that's up to you. For me, I like both, and I'll do both. But what it all boils down to is life is still twice as good on two wheels, even if they're indoors. We'll see you in the next one, and we're off to Crater Lake. Yee-hoo.